Hi, everybody. My name is Brandon. I'm Veahafta's COO. And this is, I believe, our third formal insider event. And we've created these events as an opportunity to invite you, our stakeholders, virtually into our office to understand more about the inner workings of Veahafta. So you all understand the wonderful work we do all year, the impact we're making on individuals, but there's a big question of how and why do we make these decisions and what are the factors that come into those decision making. Many of you may also get, we send out a monthly communication, Carrie sends out a monthly communication that also is designed in a similar way to speak further about the inner workings of Veahafta. So today, as you know, today we're talking about resilience. So the way I would say it is that, in life, when we see someone who beats the odds, we tend to think that person is the exception, born with something the rest of us maybe weren't. But, the longer that I've worked at Veahafta, the less I believe that to be true. We used to measure success by someone gets a job. Hey, you're employed, positive outcome, there you go. That's great. And that's how a lot of the systems in our government work is you're employed, positive outcome. That job can change someone's circumstances. Very true, right? You need a job to regain that independence, to regain stability, to be able to afford food on your table, a house over your head, all of those things on Maslow's hierarchy of needs to become stable. But what happens when circumstances change again? So you got a job, it's great, but what happens when you lose that job? And the thing that decides what happens next isn't really whether someone's employed, it's whether they believe they can handle that change. And that change, the belief is really resilience. And it's that which makes the difference between change that lasts and change that quietly comes undone. So resilience is really a key part of what we do, but it's the hardest part for us to demonstrate, right? It's easy for us to every year to say, we have 300 plus graduates who have, 70% of them have gone on to employment. But the real key there that is really hard for us to tell you in the numbers is the work we do with resilience. And that's why we're here today. Because really, that's the most durable thing we build. It's not employment. It's actually that a person starts to believe they're stronger than they thought. So how are we going to do that today? So we are going to have a discussion led by Veahafta volunteer and Jewish Community Authority, Ellin Bessner. She is a journalist, author, and host of the CJN's North Star podcast. She's an award-winning journalist, speaker, author. Again, longtime volunteer. She just came from a volunteer shift in our office. She spent time on our outreach van, in the kitchen, in the warehouse, and she brings curiosity and this firsthand experience to this conversation. And she's going to be speaking with two of our in-house pros. The first is Marina, who's one of our case managers. Marina supports the women, newcomers, vulnerable individuals across the GTA as they navigate housing, social services, and all the other complex life challenges. Her work is grounded in relationship building and empowerment and helping people regain stability and confidence. And finally, we're going to hear from the top honcho of the programs department, our VP of programs, Marni. And Marni brings 20 years of experience to the table, specifically working within homelessness and poverty. She began as a mental health counselor in a women's shelter and continuing her leadership roles across community services. At Veahafta, as I just said, she leads the programs team, and she's focused on long-term stability, employment pathways, and measurable impact. So I am going to minimize myself, and I am going to highlight the people who you came to see. Now, before I do that, if you have questions, and we really welcome questions, please keep them in mind and add them to the chat box, and we can have some time at the end to pose those questions. So without further ado, I am going to remove myself somehow from the spotlight, and I am going to add our speakers. Give me 1 sec to get everybody on there. Okay, Ellin, feel free to take it away. Thank you.
Thank you for that wonderful introduction. Hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning in for the next 45 minutes to an hour. I'm here at Vahavta, and I will be going back to my volunteer shift in the warehouse and taking off this fancy jacket and putting on my construction stuff. I want to just say that, when most people, as you mentioned, Brandon, think of Vahavta, they think about the van, the sandwiches, the amazing meals, the clothing, the hygiene kits. And that's what we see and donors see firsthand. And what's really less visible is that they're increasingly positioning themselves, Vahafta is, as more than just emergency relief organization and focusing on resilience. So we're going to talk today about this current strategy to help people move from crisis to stability and eventually employment. And resilience is a big part of that. I'm thrilled to lead this discussion with Marni and Marina, and I'll open up the first question. And this is for either of you to start, but for both of you to answer. When we think about poverty, a lot of people think about housing, food, or income. So, how does long-term instability affect somebody's confidence and ability to move forward?
Marina, do you want to start? You want me to start?
Uh, sure, I can start. I will.
Go for
Thank
it.
you, Marni. I work as a case manager. Well, hello everyone. And my role as a case manager is to look at poverty not only as lack of money that the challenges that the client might face, but it's also the clients live in survival mode. When someone is worried every day about housing, food, or paying the bills, their brain naturally focuses on surviving today, not planning for tomorrow. And that long term instability affects confidence and decision making. And after months or maybe years of crisis, many people begin to believe that nothing I do will change my situation. So that becomes a learned behavior, that becomes a mental state of lack of confidence for that client. That's why I don't start with resumes when I meet my clients. I start with relationships. I want to understand their situation. I want to know where they're coming from. And people need someone who believes in them before they can believe in themselves. Resources do matter. We have plenty of resources to share with clients, but connection restores hope, and that's the first step for us. Confidence doesn't come back through resources alone, and it grows through connection and support. And this is the key sentence that I always remind myself: first connect with the client, and then move on.
Thank you. Marni, do you want to add a little bit, please?
Yeah, so that was great, Marina. Thank you. I think the only thing I'd add is Marina, you mentioned how for a lot of clients they reach the point of it doesn't matter what I do, just bad things happen. It can also be that if you've experienced instability for such a long time, you start to question those decisions that you've made, and so you lose confidence in your decision making, and you're almost concerned that I can't make a decision because things are just going to get worse. So not only that whatever's going to happen is going to happen, but I could actually make it worse. And so people get paralyzed, and so they can't move forward because they can't make decisions. They can't make choices because they're worried about making it worse. It's really tough to pull yourself out of that, and it's interesting. Um, I was just last week or 2 weeks ago, I sat in on one of our employment workshops that happened to be the topic of building confidence in your job search. And the message of it really was, if confidence isn't something that you have or don't have, it's a muscle. You have to build it. You have to practice it. So that's a lot of what Marina was talking about is what we do with clients. We sort of hold that belief in them to start with and help them learn to believe in themselves and build that confidence and practice that confidence in different ways in our various programs, because it's something that it's like a fake it till you make it kind of thing, right? You have to practice that skill. It's not just, oh, well, I don't have confidence, and so then I'm stuck and I'm paralyzed forever. It's a muscle that you have to build.
Okay, well, let's get into it then. It can feel abstract, as you mentioned. So, what does resilience look like? And this is for Marni too, in the lives of the clients that you work with.
I think it looks like, to start with, uh, dealing with small everyday challenges in their lives. So, like I said, people are often paralyzed and not able to make decisions. So, it's that starting to make small decisions in their life, starting to work with our case managers or with the program coordinators on whatever tasks there might be, rather than just sitting back and letting people do for them. Marina, would you agree? Like that would be sort of the first step that I'd see.
I would agree, and I would add that's the time to start making mistakes. I love when clients say, "Oh, I reached out, I couldn't get hold of somebody, or my appointment was canceled." That's amazing. That's wonderful. I want to hear more that you did something, you took action, even despite a failure, but you start taking initiative and you start being independent. Some of our clients, this might sound very basic, but it's not for many of our clients. This is the first step towards independence.
So it's interesting. I don't know if you could put a pie chart, but in terms of the outreach, the survival stuff that Vahafta does versus the resilience work, is it 50-50 now? Is it 60-40? Just before we move into how you
Yeah.
measure, I'm just curious on how.
Do you mean in terms of like the van, so MJRH, the Mobile Jewish Response to Homelessness,
So all
versus the
the outward
pre-employment?
stuff, right? Versus
Yeah.
this case management and day-to-day stuff that you're doing with clients to make them resilient. Are you 20-80
Overlap.
now? How does it work?
So I would say, I don't know that I could put a percentage on it, but the focus of the, I guess what you call the resiliency work, is more in the pre-employment, internship, life stabilization, case management, all those sorts of services that we offer. Um, a lot harder to do in outreach. The interactions that we have are they're very quick. They're very focused on life-saving opportunities. So we want to make sure that people are getting fed, are getting clothing, we are absolutely connecting them to referrals and resources if that's what they want. Um, but it's not the same as the work that's done, say, in the other programs. So the level of resiliency that might be built in those kinds of interactions is through just having someone show up for you. You know, our clients through MJRH, they appreciate the consistency, they appreciate the care that our outreach workers show, and just knowing that someone believes in them. But that's more about building trust so that someone is then ready for the next steps for resources and connection to either our programs or other resources and programs in the community. So we don't really, I wouldn't say resiliency building is as big a part there as everywhere else.
Okay. And let's talk specifically about the accepted industry specific, social work specific tools that you use to measure resilience. Because I had to look this up too. And thanks to ChatGPT, I now know. What's the name of the one that you use and ones that you use?
So we use what's called the CD risk. It's the Connor Davidson Resilience Scale. It's a validated scale. There's 25 different items. They're split into different points. There's a whole sort of um, um, system to calculating the numbers, but it basically looks at 6 different areas. So it looks at hardiness, coping, adaptability and flexibility, meaningfulness and purpose, regulation of emotion and cognition, and self-efficacy. So different questions relate to different areas, and it comes up with a final score for each of those areas, and then a final resiliency score. And it's a validated scale that's used in a lot of clinical settings. So we started using that a couple of years ago, mostly because we had seen in our programs what we defined as an increase in resiliency. And it's like, well, it would be interesting to measure this and to see if we're right and sort of narratively what we're seeing. So we implemented that a couple of years ago.
And how does it get measured? Do they do like an online survey or an interview? How does it actually physically happen?
So it's an online survey. It's a licensed survey that we pay for access to use, and they do it at the beginning of whatever program they're doing with us, and at the end of the program. So typically around 9 to 12 weeks in. So it's a short period of time, but the scale has been shown to have impact, like to measure impact over short periods. That's why it was the right fit for us. Um, and it's all filled out by the client, so they know what's being done, they know the purpose of it, they answer the questions, which are very straightforward questions, and then we compare the pre and post.
Do you want to share one of your recent findings in terms of improvements and the percentage?
Yeah, so it's a score rather than a percentage. So the overall resiliency scores from this last year increased from just over 73.06 to 75.67. And when we look at each of the 6 scales separately, each of them showed incremental increases. So what we're looking for over time is really trends to make sure we're always moving in the right direction. It's one of those, I wouldn't expect a giant leap in scores because we are only talking about a 9-week period, but we are seeing a trend towards increased resiliency, which is nice to see. And then we do focus groups at the end of programs. So narratively, we do hear from people the types of things that Marina and I have already spoken about, but the scale does show the increase across all areas, which is great.
Well, Marina, you mentioned earlier that just making an appointment shows resilience, even if it gets canceled. And it would seem to me that just participating in one of your programs already shows resilience that we probably should recognize that they have, and they're demonstrating in that way just by signing up and sticking to it, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We are here to stabilize mental health, emotional condition, even sometimes physical state of an individual, and then move to employment needs. That's number
Would you be able to say what maybe changes first, what changes next when you're measuring resilience from week 0 to week 9?
Yes, I would say that during the first week, this is where I introduce myself. And as you can hear by my accent, I'm myself an immigrant to Canada. I experienced immigration twice in my life, as a child, as an adult. I speak multiple languages, and I want to establish trust with my clients. I want them to feel that I'm like them. I'm overcoming challenges. I didn't overcome them. I'm still dealing with some ongoing life obstacles, and it's okay. That's how it should be. There should be action. There should be motivation. So getting a job is only the beginning. This is what I tell them during the first meeting. Welcome to Vehavta. We are a boutique agency. We are unique because we provide that individual attention, that passionate and that compassionate approach to addressing your needs. And when clients hear that, they open up. They become willing to share, willing to express their ideas, willing to talk about their dreams, their hobbies. And during the first 2 weeks, all I'm doing is finding out those interesting details about them. What the purpose of it is not to the main goal of that is for me to have additional tips, additional information where I can connect, where I can make that meaningful connection to reach out and refer them to agencies, to networking events in the community, to volunteers who can actually be very tailored and even help them specifically based on their needs. I'll give you one example. I had a client who attended church services every Sunday. He was from Sudan. And during my first interactions with him, he said, I take pictures. I take pictures all the time. And I said, oh, that's wonderful. Did you try to ask one of the maybe event coordinators in the place of worship, you can become a photographer, offer them part-time opportunity, maybe you can get a job. He said, I didn't even think it's possible. So that just this idea of thinking outside the box, seeing the person, seeing per person's potential, that's great during the first weeks. And then we're moving to, as I say, years ago, workforce development focused mainly on resumes, interviews, and job search skills, but which they are important. But today we know that it's only part of the picture. So it's not the only thing. Life keeps happening after someone gets hired, and that's very important. When they finish half the programs at the end and they leave, they need to have those life skills. They need to stay confident. They need to know how to navigate resources on their own. So, for example, if somebody faces transportation issues, they don't know how to find themselves in this big city, or childcare delays with subsidy applications, or housing, or family responsibilities and family dynamics, or even unexpected crisis that happens. What do you do? And that's where resilience helps people recover instead of giving up. And that's when my stories, and that's when my inquiries, and that's when my interest in that client, they know, oh, I can reach out. I have somebody who cares for me. And this is trust. This is pure curiosity. I care. I really do. I'm every day when I come to work, I'm curious. It's like a new book that I'm discovering about people. So we don't just want people to find employment, as I mentioned. We want them to build the confidence and adaptability to stay employed. Adapt. Don't. And I don't like the word bounce back. You know, sometimes we say in resiliency, you have to bounce back. You have to bounce back. But if you bounce back, you stay where you are. You have to move forward. So adapt and move forward. Adapt, adjust, and move forward and learn. That's I think the process.
Marni, could you add what it looks like in practice in a client's daily life from 0 weeks to week 10 or week?
Yeah, absolutely. So
I'd
I'd say at the beginning there's a lot of hand holding, and what you see is that starts to lessen as we go. So for example, you might have one of our employment specialists might work with a client and sit with them and help them write their resume, cover letter, teach them how to job search. But by the end, they're doing that all themselves. They're adjusting their resume based on the employer that they're applying to. They are doing the job searching on their own. So it's that move towards more independence and confidence in their decision making. I would say that's probably what you see. You still have all the caring and all of that Marina was talking about, but it's they know they have us to fall back on and for supports and whatever they might need, but they're doing things quite independently at the end. More practically in certain programs. So in, for example, the Have to Skills Academy, towards the end of the program, we have leadership presentations where they pick a leader that inspires them. They prepare a presentation. They do it for their group. When we tell them at the beginning of the program that that's going to be coming, they're like, I could never do that ever, ever, ever. And most of them don't think they could even get to graduation. So it's also that building of belief in themselves that goes on. And same thing in the internships where they're given opportunities to start leading shifts along the way. So moving from really that just I'm a learner to I'm a leader by the end. So all of that happens across those weeks.
I've seen that in the kitchen too, where
I wanted to ask you that, what you see as a
100%.
volunteer.
I never get to lead. I just, talk on the side and get kicked out of class. No, I'm like the rabble rouser that keeps the conversation going. But no, I absolutely see that in the kitchen. And I'm interested, speaking about the things that donors see. They get the tour, they get the kitchen, they get how many, we just got a huge shipment of clothing in the warehouse from American Tall, like you handed out 25,000 meals or 10,000 winter coats. There was a wonderful fundraising event for that earlier this year. But how can you show donors that these employment and stabilization resilience programs actually change lives? How are you doing that?
That's a good question. I think from an impact perspective, it's partly from the focus groups and the narratives that we get from clients. So we do gather that information in terms of what impact they have to had on your life. It's also a matter of where are people down the road? So it's not easy to get long-term data. It's something that we're working on. We have been through our employment services now entered a system where we're trying to track people for the year in terms of long-term impact. And what we're looking for really is that we're not a revolving door. Like all of this resiliency piece is about, we don't want to be a revolving door service. Of course, we're always here for clients. If they come back and they're like, I need your support, of course, we're going to be there for them. But what we really want is someone to call us up 6 months later and say, hey, I had this challenge come up and here's how I dealt with it. And I'm so excited because now I have this new opportunity that I'm moving on to. We want them to be able to do that on their own. That's what we're looking for long term, that people can pick themselves back up. Marina, I like your piece around not just bounce back, but move forward, adapt and move forward. And so that's what we want to look for to build in people. And that's what we're also trying to gather feedback from clients in terms of long-term impact. And Ellin, you've probably seen some presentations from some of our alumni at events that we've had. We just had an event last month. I lose track of time, but one of our clients from, I believe she was 2018, sharing where she is now. And so it's those sorts of stories that we like to share.
Can you, for our listeners who may and viewers who may not have seen that little clip, can you give us the 30-second, resume of it? I'd love to hear what that story looked like.
That particular client? Yeah, so she was a single mom and living in her car with her son. She went through one of our programs at the time. She eventually moved into employment. She's now actually working independently. She has sort of started her own business. Her son is now in university on a scholarship. And like, it's such a beautiful story to see not just the impact that we have on our clients, but their kids too. We know that if we're impacting parents, we're having hopefully a long-term impact on generations to come.
I see that in the kitchen because they take food home, and it's not just it's for the people at home too. On the end of a shift, if there's an extra chicken or an extra meal. Marina, can we talk a bit about some of the less visible barriers that people face when they're trying to re-enter the workforce that our donors, your donors, might not fully appreciate? You mentioned living in your car. That's one of them, obviously, housing, but.
Yes, many of the biggest barriers are not visible. They are, especially for newcomers, that's the biggest loss is not employment, it's the identity. And no one sees that aspect. Someone who was, for example, an engineer or a teacher back home or a business owner back home arrives in Canada and suddenly feels like they're starting from zero. And the effects definitely that affects your confidence, that shakes who you are as an individual. Other barriers are trauma. Many people are arriving from different parts of the world. Some countries have political instability. Some countries have systematic oppression. Some countries have LGBTQ and women's rights as well, oppression. People see themselves as oppressed. People come here seeing themselves as oppressed. Displacement and also rebuilding trust. It's very difficult to come to a new country and experience this journey of immigration. Your status. What is your status? Is it one of the first questions that I look at the intake form. What is client status? Because based on their status, I can see, okay, the challenges. Are they refugee claimants? Are they asylum seekers? Are they conventional refugees? Or did they already receive PR, permanent resident status? So even services are going to be different for them. As well as supporting family overseas. That's the barrier no one sees. I have a client who every month sends a check back home. And he needs to sustain his life in Canada as well. He needs to cover the cost of rent. He needs to cover the cost of basic needs and food. How will he survive on what is left for him if he needs to help his family? As well as childcare, as well as housing, high cost of living, high cost of rent. newcomers especially need, they're reaching out to us for help with support letters, help us secure housing, because the landlords will not provide, will not sign an agreement without seeing your credit history. But how can I give you a credit history if I'm not yet employed? Yes, that's the process that we have to also navigate. And people are not only looking for work, they're rebuilding their lives. This is what donors should understand, and community members, that they are rebuilding their life from day one. We support the whole person, not just employment needs, not just reviewing their resume history and adjusting resumes, teaching them. I even teach my clients how to use AI today, because don't be only fixated on one resume. Don't have only one copy of your resume. Be able to be flexible. Know how to present yourself to different employers based on different job descriptions. So all these are new life skills for them, new learning tools that they have to acquire. And this is something that people don't see.
You know, can I share a story before we go to our final questions, and then we'll open it up to you, the audience, without naming names or anything? In the warehouse well, let's say within the last 6 months, it's not just the trauma or the political oppression or gender-based oppression or violence that people faced leaving their countries. When they come here, everybody, you know, in my generation thought, oh, Golden and Medina, this is the promised land. But when Trump's auto tariffs came into effect in 2025, one of the clients who I was helping work with in the warehouse had been employed in one of the auto plants in St. Catharines area, as a temporary employee, not as a auto worker union, but as a temporary employee. He lost his job when the entire shift was laid off because of the Canadian fight with the American auto tariffs, and moved here hoping to retrain and find stability. So even when they do get jobs and they come here, there are, as you said, serious challenges that are out of their control. And so, you know, and he's also a DJ, which is, he does, like you said, with the photographer, with his community. So he was making money that way. But it was as we were all discussing, elbows up and, you know, that whole thing, it's affecting people who just got here too, not just Canadians who've been here for a long time. And it was very eye-opening about the resilience programs to how to cope with that unexpected bump. Once he got here, it wasn't enough. He had to then do, you know what I mean? Anyway, that's my story that personally experienced.
Well, but Ellin, like what a big step for him, because for some people that would be I give up. Like I can't do this anymore. This, you know, but the fact that he picked himself up, he moved, he started a new program. He's like, so we absolutely work to build that confidence, that resilience in clients, but they also come with a lot of their own strengths and their own experiences, which we learn a lot from, which is, it's amazing that he could do that.
Well, that was leading to one of my question, which is what surprises you about how resilience develops? And I'll ask you both, and then we'll open it up to questions. Anyone can go first.
I think for me, I love seeing how the impact of connecting with others is such a vital part of it. So even in the scales, when I was sort of talking about what the 6 scales were, one of them had to do, and I gotta pull my list back up because I don't know them off the top of my head. But there's meaningfulness and purpose. A lot of those questions have to do with, do you have someone that you can go to when you're in a stressful situation? Do you have a community? All those sorts of things. And I think because our programs are so community based, so in your internships, you have your other interns that you're working with in they have the Skills Academy. Even though it's online, these people form relationships that are like family. When they finally meet each other for in person at graduation, it's like long lost family that they're greeting. It's unbelievable. And I think that's a huge part of what builds that resiliency, and that knowing that I have people in my life, knowing I have someone to go to, especially as Marina talks a lot about newcomers who come here not having any connections. It's, I don't know if it's surprising or not, but I love seeing that that's such a vital piece of what's built. So the community through the programs with their peers, and also with VAFTA staff and support. And we have, so we do another assessment, not related to resiliency. We do what's called a needs assessment with clients when they start and when they finish, just to really identify what are the supports that they will need most when we start working with them, and to see if we've had an impact at the end. And the three highest impacted areas are, as expected, employment, education, and the third is connections to social supports. So it just sort of highlights that impact, as well as the increase that we see in resiliency. I think there's quite the marriage there, and it's beautiful to see.
Thank you. Marina?
I want to continue what Marni just shared about connection. I can give an example. I was participating in a VSA program online workshop, and
For those of us who don't speak Vahafta, what is that?
it's a 9 weeks employment readiness program.
Vahafta Skills Academy.
VSA
Yes.
Academy. Yeah, we use a lot of initials, and we forget that in the outside world doesn't know what it all means.
I don't speak Vahafta, right?
We have our own language.
But this program preparation for employment and mental health, connection, resume writing, and etc. But when we opened the Zoom, I've noticed that one of the participants was wearing a beautiful traditional Ethiopian dress with beautiful colors, and I asked you, I even complimented her. I said, "You have such a beautiful."
Garment.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, sometimes my languages are just mixed in my brain, and it just lit her up. And everyone, Canadian clients who were born here, all of a sudden started asking her about her culture and tradition. And that panel opened up that small talk about who she is, where she's from, her challenge. That's just another way for people to connect. And I think being seen is huge, is a huge accomplishment. If VAFTA provides this opportunity for people to talk about their identity, as was mentioned before, that's an accomplishment.
And that surprised you?
It surprised me the extent of time that they started sharing, talking about fashion, and then somebody else talked about their in Afghanistan, what they wear in Afghanistan. Somebody else said, "Oh, it's similar to what we do in Syria." And all of a sudden, I said, "We need to have some snacks. We need to record this. We need to have another program, fashion program of of people doing some. We have so much talent here. It's absolutely amazing."
Can I share something that surprised me? I'm the MC, so I'm like hogging it. But I remember working, this is last year, I was the only woman, the Jewish grandmother type person in the warehouse, and all the men were complaining about how expensive it was to have to get married back home. They're so happy they're getting here because they had to invite every single person in the village and go and visit all of them. And we were talking about, we talked about Valentine's Day. Here's how this happened. We made community with all the men because someone donated, those Lego roses that they were selling last year as gifts you could buy for someone. I don't know if you know what Lego is, but anyway, and I said, "Oh, I saw one. It's so cute. I might get one. You should get one for your wife." And they're like, "This is cheap. You should see what we have to do." But anyway, so it became this whole thing about community identity, and I learned a lot. And also, they all shared what the responsibilities of having to be married back home was. So it was really a really beautiful moment, and that surprised me. Now we're gonna end the formal part of our conversation, and Brandon, you wanted us to open it up to other people's questions, so I'll ask you to come back on and help moderate that because I don't see any in the panel.
Thank you very much. Let me just,
because I always have questions, so you can just throw it to me. I have one more.
Shooting them our way, yeah.
So yeah, everyone's welcome to either pose that question in the chat, but I don't see any. You could also raise your hand. The icon will let me know if you have any questions. And if that's the case, we'll address it. Otherwise, maybe Ellin, do you want to take it away with your question as we keep going?
Well, let's give an opportunity for any of the comments, people who would like to make a comment or share their story first. I'd be happy to unmute yourself and please share.
Oh, I see Esty has one there. Can you unmute yourself?
Can you unmute yourself?
I can ask you to unmute. Maybe that'll prompt you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, first of all, I would like to thank you for this webinar. I think it's been extremely informative and I really appreciate it. If I was to tell someone who could utilize your services, how would they go about it? Who do they contact? How do they contact? It's a very practical question. And I just could use some help in guiding someone on this.
So the best way, assuming they have internet access or even can go to a library, right on our website under the program section, there's any of the programs that you look up, there's always an apply button. It all leads to the same place. And so when someone is applying to our programs, the first thing it will prompt someone to do is to sign up for an info session. So there's tons of dates listed, dates and times. They pick whatever info session they want to attend. They would attend the online info session where our recruitment and intake coordinators talk about all the various services available to them. So that, because sometimes someone hears about one program and they're like, oh, that sounds interesting, I want to apply. But as they learn about more, they're like, oh, that one's an even better fit. So we do the info sessions. All of those who attend the info sessions are then invited to actually send in their formal application, identify which service they are interested in at that point. And then they are invited for an interview with our recruitment intake coordinators who will determine eligibility and fit for programs from there.
And when they have these different meetings along the way, are you doing everything online or is this in person?
So it is online. The info sessions are online. The interviews are also by Zoom. We can also do them by phone as well. And if someone really wants to come and do it in person, we could make that happen.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Rabbi Goldfinger.
I think it's important to keep in mind that a lot of people who are in great need do not have access to computers and online and may not know how to use it. So what might be more useful for them is to have a phone number that they can reach out to. I just thought I'd mention that.
Yeah, so they can always call our info line as well, and we'll help direct them that way. And you are absolutely correct. A lot of people don't have access or skills in technology. So one of the great things about our programs is that we include all of that. So our VAF to Skills Academy, for example, because it is all a digital program, we provide laptops to all participants. We have a staff who is the digital support staff. So she helps with training on the computers, on using Zoom. Part of the way we look at that program is that there's digital skills training incorporated right into it because we know that that's such an important skills for all individuals. So both by participating in the online workshops and we have an online learning management system with some self-directed learning. So they learn to do online learnings as well. And we support them and teach them through all of that too, because they're absolutely vital skills.
I have a comment that came out in a private message and a question I have before I hand it back to Ellin for her question. That's okay. So first,
You go.
Edna shared with us a great resource that Marni, I'll send your way to consider. Something called the 6 C's model, which came out of Telhai University. Are you at all familiar with that?
I'm not, but happy to look into it, and someone else in the organization might be.
So my other question, which is a little bit planted in fairness, is so we know that Ellin, who is a wonderful volunteer in our space, in the kitchen, in the warehouse, we can talk about the outreach van. Where do volunteers play a role working with, say, the VAF to Skills Academy?
Oh, they're vital to the, so that's VSA. We call it VSA. VSA runs over 9 weeks, and participants attend 3 mornings a week online workshops that cover pre-employment skills training. So topics like motivation, time management, confidence building, assertive communication, all of those workshops are facilitated by volunteers. So we have a staff in there as well to help sort of navigate and help with the digital pieces and all that. But the actual facilitation is by volunteers who have expertise on the various topics that we're presenting on. So for example, we do a couple sessions on mental health. We have a retired mental health nurse who presents those. We have certain ones that are more HR related. We have HR specialists present those. So that's all volunteer facilitated. Brandon, did you want me to mention the other services as well?
No, that's what I wanted to share, is that what's really one of the unique factors of Veahafta, aside from the case management work that we've really focused on today, is that we can't afford the 60 plus experts that come through our door and teach our programs, and we rely heavily on the expertise of our community, and that's been the way for over 14 years now. And that is why we know we're also delivering a really high quality product to these participants, because we are getting industry experts to actually do the teaching.
It's not even just the financial piece. It's very intentional that we have volunteers across all of our services, because it has quite the impact on our clients. When they learn that volunteers are giving of their time and expertise, they're quite amazed, and they start to put value on themselves and their experiences. Like, these people they're volunteering to do this. They're doing this because they want to. They're doing this just because they support us. And so it's not just that the staff believe in them, it's that we have this entire community of volunteers that believe in them enough to give of their time and their money and their effort, or whatever it might be. That also, again, talking back to resilience, helps to build that confidence and that resiliency as well. It really is a key component of all of the services that we offer. Ellen, you don't have to raise your hand. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I'm in charge. I don't have to raise my hand. Okay. No, I just wanted to speak, tachlis, practical terms. You're talking about laptops, you're talking about technology, you're talking about resume building and all these courses, and it's done online. But what kind of donor money do we need now to expand these programs, maybe to have classroom space? Because you're saying they don't meet till the end and you have to do it outside. What kind of money and what kind of ask should we be putting out there for our donors to support this program? We get lots of sandwiches, which we need, and lots of clothing, which we love, and that. But seems that it needs to be more seen as part of an ask.
Well, that's a question for Brandon as our COO and VP of resource development. I'll leave it to him to answer that one.
Yeah, so thank you. So, as I've sort of said to people in the past, that Veahafta is a bit unique than other social service agencies, that over 60% of the funds that are necessary to run our programs are raised through people. We are not a heavily government funded agency. In fact, just the one little pocket of our employment services is government funded. Everything else is largely funded by individuals, with a little bit of foundation and other supports on top of that. But that's when we call out for these campaigns, aside from, say, we ask when there's extreme heat or extreme weather, we have specific needs for our outreach van. But when we run our campaigns throughout the year, when you donate and you make an unrestricted donation, even if it's through a tribute card, the funds are largely going in the direction of what we call the life stabilization or the pre-employment services, because this is one of our largest areas. And as you mentioned, it's actually, as Ellen said at the beginning of the conversation, one of the least seen elements of our work, because out of the 1,600 volunteers in a year, we're talking about 60 of them that get to facilitate these programs. So it's a really small pocket that gets the exposure to this, and is actually tremendously important and impactful work.
Right. And it's not just once a week, it's 9 weeks straight. So
That's it, 9 weeks straight over 4 cohorts.
times a
So
year,
it's almost entirely throughout the
Oh, yeah.
entire
You
year.
don't have to wear your hair in a net, but it's,
Yeah.
I'm very pleased to bring this conversation towards the end of this webinar, and I'll hand it over back to Brandon. Thank you for having us all here, and it's been really, really fascinating.
And Ellin, thank you so much to you, and thank you to Marni and Marina for being the excellent people you are.
Thank you.
And
Sure,
we
thanks.
quite literally couldn't do it without you guys. So thank you, everyone. Please follow up with us if you have other questions that come up. If you want to get involved in any way, we're always available. You can either contact us directly through the info@veata.org, news@veata.org, reach out to me if you know my email, or Natalie on my team, or Taman, our volunteer team. You literally could reach out to anyone, and we're happy to help. So thank you all. Have a great day. Shabbat Shalom. And I look forward to seeing you all again.